All right, it's another Thursday. It's another 1 o'clock on the West Coast. Coming in with episode 12, coming from the Pen and Paper Strength app, House of Pain in the Garage, inside the rack, bringing another hour of strong content to the people. Special guy today. I've known him since I never can remember if it's 2010 or 2011, but it's pretty neat because what he's going to present on is something that how he kind of came into the USC program as an intern, who eventually quickly got a full-time position. So he does some really good stuff with now the intern curriculum and program with the current and future interns and at USC. So he's going to share this, and we're excited. This is Big Timmy O. Most people don't know him, his real name. They know him as Big Dog. And he maybe he can open up and explain the background, the history of Big Dog. So Big Dog, it's yours, baby. You got to unmute yourself and rock and roll. Let's go.
Awesome, Double. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, the Big Dog story I don't think is as cool as it may seem. We had two Tims on staff at the time, and Tim Karen decided to call himself T-Bone because every time someone said Timmy, we both looked and it was an issue. After that, I came in one day, I think it was after I got done lifting. We were in a meeting. The meeting was kind of finished. I said, hey, man, are we done? Big Dog's got to eat. You guys both busted up and said, did you just name yourself Big Dog? And it's been over ever since. All right, let's get this rolling. We're good with the screen share, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right. So building an elite internship program, kind of cover our process and what we've done since the start of time here. Once again, kind of came in under Tim Karen. So if you look at what we're doing now, it's basically what I consider as like a third generation program and manual. Tim Karen being ground zero. And really everything that he'd done, he laid the groundwork for everything that we continue to do today. After that, Coach Chris Chase and Kelly Gormandy were the next ones to kind of take it over. And I thought that they brought two real essential things to the program. One was we started incorporating what we consider our coaching practicum. And it's our way of evaluating the process or the progress that our interns have made throughout the semester or a year. Sometimes we've had them longer. The other things is that they really started involving the other coaches into the education process. So when I had started, Coach Tim was basically in charge of the entire thing. Any education we did, whether it was reading, assignments, PowerPoint presentations, was all done through him. And, we got the dude's smart as all get out. What we realized is though we are all very well versed in each one of the subjects that we'll cover, we found that each one of us kind of can specialize in one. I'll use myself as an example being, I started competing in weightlifting when I was in high school. So my background is a little more well-versed when it comes to Olympic lifts. I've seen it more, I've been around it for quite a long time. When we shifted the education over, when it came down to it, I was kind of put in charge of teaching the Olympic lifts. If you look at someone like Coach Kelly, she played collegiate soccer. When she became a strength coach, she was working with soccer. So she really dove into energy system training, and her knowledge is a little deeper than mine would be. And it goes that with every coach comes in, we kind of try to find what you specialize so you can teach it. After that, Coach Ivan Lewis had come in, and basically he's the one that kind of let me head up the internship program. What's awesome about Coach I is that he doesn't micromanage anything. He came in, he said, hey, I kind of like the way we do it now. Here are some guidelines and some stipulations I want to see met, but he gave me full autonomy of the entire program and just said, hey, do what you do, make it work. For me, that was awesome because then I got to run with it. When I approached it, I kind of thought of it from a standpoint of like, hey, we have all this good information. What can I do to really add to it? And I thought about it with us utilizing all the different coaches. When you look at a textbook, you can have 10 different authors on there, but it all reads the same. It all looks the same. So originally, even though we had different coaches coaching it, we had our manual, which wasn't too thick, maybe 15 pages. And as you would go to present your topic to the interns, you would basically print out whatever articles you wanted them to read or whatever information and hand it to them. I look back at the book I got from Tim and a lot of the other books I've seen, 3-ring binder, a bunch of different paperwork from, 15 pages on how to do Olympic lifting and all the different things throughout it. So really, when you give something, it's kind of like this hodgepodge of information. So I really thought, hey, can I make this look more professional and presentable? So as I got all the information, I went to the different coaches and said, hey, whatever you teach on, send me that information. So I went in there, formatted it, edited it, so it reads the same, it looks the same. That way on day one, when our interns come in, they sit down, I hand them this very cleanly presented book. And they're like, from get-go, they're like, oh, this is the real deal. They're not playing around here. Along with that, I've also tried to focus on trying to keep it up to date as possible. So when coaches leave, when coaches come back, or we have a different coach come in, the content never stays the same. If we're on our 3rd generation of this manual, we're like on edition 17. There's no 2 intern manuals that are the same. You either change it semester to semester or year to year. With that, there's more information out there. We learn more studies. So anything new, I'm trying to cram into this book the best we can. We want them to have the most recent information. After that, which really kind of came and helped this past year, has been Coach Darian Pica. And I thought the thing that she brought the most is accountability to the program. Once again, prior to, as each individual coach would go to present their information, it was basically done on whatever day you can do it. Oh, hey, I'm free Wednesday at 2 o'clock. We're doing intern education there. And every coach would be different. Every week would be different. Sometimes you would miss your week just because you get too busy. Coach Darian came in and was like, hey, we should make a set day for our intern education. So let's just say it was Thursday at 1 o'clock, and that can change semester to semester. But as a staff, we all knew every Thursday at 1 o'clock, we're doing intern education. Furthermore, then it came down to, she actually put dates on there of like, hey, Tim, you are presenting program design 3/29. So I knew there was no excuse. I knew everything that had to be prepared for that week. So when I say it brought accountability, it didn't bring accountability to our interns. It brought accountability to us as coaches. And I think it showed up a lot. Once I kind of dug into it, the way my brain works is I need to like strip something down to its simplest form for me to truly understand something. So as I took the book from Chase and Kelly, I kind of looked back at what Tim had given me as well. So I was able to kind of compare. I saw that originally there was a lot of stuff from Tim's book that was in our current book. So I was able to put it all together. But as I broke it down, I realized that there was this set, what would I call it? I guess a framework that goes into it. So I'll kind of cover the framework. Kind of came over these different areas right here. 1 is a mission statement. 2 is a hiring process. I'm not really going to touch on that here. I don't think we're really going to have enough time. I have some slides. I moved them to the end, but if someone wants to talk about kind of how I go about the hiring process, you guys can email me. We can talk about it, call me, all that good stuff. After that's going to be developing some curriculum for your interns, developing a onboarding process, and then an evaluation process as well. When we look at the mission statement, I looked back to see what good old Dr. Karen had wrote in his, and it makes me laugh because when I think about it, his said, and don't quote me on this exactly, but it was develop the best internship program in the country, or something very similar to that. It makes me laugh because I know him well, and if you know him, like you can basically hear him say that. So when I looked at it from the mission statement standpoint, I was like, all right, well, how can I kind of make it my own without plagiarizing this man? And I came up with this first statement. It was to establish an elite internship program. What could we do in our program? What can I bring to the table that will set our program apart from the other 95% of programs in the country? And that's what I was striving for when I first kind of headed this up. In order for that to be true, I believe this next statement is paramount. And really, you have to remember why it is an internship program and why we're doing it. And it's simply this: to develop and prepare the next wave of strength and conditioning professionals. There is some, you want people to grind, so the cleaning up, the putting away stuff, the long hours, all those things they're in there. and you do those things to kind of weed out some people, you know, we say it all the time, this isn't for everybody. And you're going to find out, hey, if I like this, if I don't like it. So there's part of that process that happens. But in reality, as you look at this, I truly believe that if we're not trying to develop and prepare people, that we are not only failing them as a human being, but we're also failing anyone who's ever taught us anything and helped us, and we're failing our profession. If everything we're doing is talking about developing the next wave of strength and conditioning coaches, that's when the next part comes in. We start talking about our curriculum a little bit. I've kind of broken this down into 2 sections that'll then break down to like 4 other sections, I do believe. The first one is going to be our lessons, or like our subject matter. So up here is just a quick example of everything that we kind of cover within our internship program. I'm not going to go over each one of these, but once again, if someone really wants to dig in and have conversations, we can do that all day. All right, you can take a screenshot, that way you kind of know what we're going from. After we've developed our lessons, the next part of it is the education process of it. This is what I've broken down to 4 different sections of how I believe someone learns in our field. The 4 sections are going to be this. It's going to be theory, practical, application, and experience. Let's dive into theory a little bit and kind of what I mean about that, by that. The theory is going to be knowing the science. That is, let's use like energy system, for example. That would be knowing, you know, your ATP, your phosphocreatine, glycogen, glycolysis, all those things, like knowing how that operates. I believe if you want to really push the boundaries of what we can do as strength coaches, that you need to have you need to be strongly rooted in that and understand it. For our purposes with our curriculum, we really don't hit home too hard with that. We get kids that either have already taken courses in those things or are studying to get certified. So something like, if they struggle there, like they need to read the essentials. Then we can help them, not necessarily in our own curriculum, but we can help them kind of manage through things. We can talk about it, roundtable, all those things. Now with each one of our curriculum, there's a little bit of this theory in there. We touch on it, that way we understand it, they understand it. After the theory, it comes the practical part of it. When I think practical, I'm thinking of our principles and our methodologies, essentially. So if you can understand the principles behind things, it's going to help you a whole lot. If I use the same example as last time, so let's use the energy system. The principles behind that would be knowing that if you want to work your anaerobic alactic system, that you're under 45 seconds of work. And if you want to work your anaerobic lactic, you're 45 to 120 seconds. And if you want to do aerobic, you're 240 seconds plus, right? That's the practical side of it. I'd be able to give someone a program, like hand them, like, hey, here is a conditioning program. You could look at it and understand or see that, you know, hey, oh, we're working this system right here. They're working this system in this phase of the year. It's being able to just identify that. The next part of it, what I think is truly, truly important, and it's something I really try to hang my hat on to try to get across to our interns, and something that a lot of our assignments and projects are geared towards. And that's going to be the application side of everything. When we talk about the application side of it, we can do it a couple different ways. One of them is having like these open forum discussions with these kids. And what we're trying to get to them is teaching them how to tailor whatever it is to their needs or to their specific situation. So if we kind of use that same example with the energy system programming, you would look at it and say, hey, I want you to develop a conditioning program for this sport at this time of the year. What would you do and why? And see if they can take everything that they learned from the practical aspect of it and apply it to whatever our situation is that we gave them. If someone's really well versed, they may be able to reason it pretty well. If someone isn't as well versed, you know, it may be us trying to help them reason through things. But we want to provide them the opportunity to apply all the theory and all the practical elements. So if we did like an assisted reasoning part of it, and they start rambling or they get too broad, we can look at it and be like, all right, hey, you're on the right track, but think of it like this and try to narrow down their scope. An example would be, say, hey, all right, I asked you to train the anaerobic alactic system. Think about it like this. How much work can you do to train that? And then they can literally look down their book because the answer is right there. There's some table or something they can look at and say, hey, oh, if I want to do the anaerobic alactic, I got to be under 45 seconds. Okay, perfect. So now you're starting to realize this. What would have to be your work to rest ratio for this? And once again, they can look down at their book. Work to rest ratio would be anywhere between 1 to 12 to 1 to 20 or whatever it is. Don't quote me on that. I don't know these. Once again, it's not my strong suit. I use the book all the time for programming, so I'm never going to yell at them for using it, right? But then we can see, okay, so if you wanted to put someone on an erg, how long would you put them on with their work to rest ratio? And then maybe they can start reasoning. Oh, you know what? I'm going to have them do a 10-second row, and I'm going to give them a minute 30 of rest. And that way they know they're attacking that system. Perfect. Now you're understanding how you can utilize all this information. It's pretty important. It's not really a lecture form. I just want to know what they've processed. I want to see what they've processed or how they're processing things. The next part of the application is going to be our assignments and our projects. This can span anything from, there's readings that they might need to do, and our readings aren't super duper long. We're not making them read an entire book and test on it, but some good articles that we know of or found or things that we believe are really going to help them out in the field. Just discussions, like I said, sitting down with us and talking through some of these things that are going on in their heads. And then our coaching practicum. So when we talk about our coaching practicum, I'll kind of pull up this slide right here. This would be an example of a sheet of paper that we would have given them. But our coaching practicum covers a couple different things. And it's really to see how they coach either an individual or a group. So we'll do this with like our Olympic lifts and our strength lifts. We'll do this with a warm up. We'll do this with a movement session, whether it's linear speed or multi-directional speed. We'll do this with an injury assessment. All right, so as we go through this, it's a way for us to actually grade them and they know what they're being graded on. So each one of these areas right here on that slide, in this particular case, they'd be coaching an Olympic lift, and then we would have them circle the clean. Okay, you're gonna teach us the clean today. And we're going over these things as they go through it. So as they're coaching us, what's their presence and energy like? Are they talking real low? Are they loud enough? Are they excited to be there? Is it someone you want to train with? And I know everyone's different, everyone has their own style. That we're not saying it has to be this. It's just, hey, are you accomplishing this? And we'll go through them, right? Awareness. Are they able to see everything that's going on? Are they aware of everything that's happening in that training session? Or is there one kid that's doing something wrong the entire time and they never pay attention to it? Or is there something going on behind the scenes that may present a danger to anyone training? Their demonstration. So whether they're demonstrating it or they're having someone else demonstrate it, but do they use them and do they use them well? Cueing, what kind of cues are they using? Are they clear and crisp and precise? Are they rambling a whole lot? Feedback, are they giving feedbacks to the athletes essentially? Whether it's good, positive, negative, whatever it may be, but are you continually trying to give them some kind of feedback so they can continue to get better? And the last one is coaching proficiency that we grade them on. And we look at that as kind of like your knowledge on the situation itself or on the subject matter itself. Right? If someone tried to teach us a clean but had no knowledge of it, like that would be kind of prevalent as they go through it. So same as we go, like we'll circle a score for everything. We'll total at the end, say, hey, you had a 15 out of 30, and then we'll go over with them. Here's some things that we found that might be holes in your games and things you should work on. Here are things that you did pretty well. So I really want you to expand on this. This is what sets you apart. This is what makes you you. So use that to your advantage, right? So we always want to give them a little bit of negative, a little bit of positive feedback so they can improve. After that, we go through our presentation process. Our presentation process is basically like a final exam, and it encompasses all aspects of the internship program. At the end of the semester, they're supposed to present their program to the entire staff. So at the beginning, sometime early on, we've given them guidelines for what they must program for. An example would be like, hey, I want you to program for our women's soccer team. We need a 4-week off-season program and a 2-week in-season program. So throughout the year, each one of these lessons should be a piece to that puzzle, and they can continue to build their program and basically a portfolio. We make this like an interview style. So they come in, we ask them to get dressed up a little bit, not necessarily a suit and tie, but you know, a nice polo shirt on, some slacks on, hopefully, but we want to put them in front of all of us. We sit down in a conference room and they have to present to us like they are interviewing for a job at USC for that particular job. I like it because it really puts the pressure on them of learning and experiencing like what an interview might be like for them at the next level. It's fun because let's say we have 10 coaches in there and double, I know you've been there, you know exactly how this works, but everyone kind of critiques on something else. You're going to have one coach that just dives in and is going to rip the program apart from a program design part. Like, hey, how come you did this many reps? How come you did this? How come you did that? And really put them on the spot and see if they can tell why or, you know, learn from it. You'll have another coach who will sit there and say, during this presentation, I heard you say 73 times. That was extremely distracting. I had to stop listening to you. So it's just more experience, more experience. And I think that's really important for the next part of what I really want to hit home is going to be experience. When I talk about experience, it's simply this. It's coaching. The only way to get better at coaching is to coach. Period. The end. Right? It doesn't matter what you've read, what you've learned from a conference or a YouTube video. The only way to try to learn how to apply that is to actually do it. That's what gives you experience on what worked, what didn't work, what you liked or what you didn't like about that. How would you refine that for your next group, for your next session, the next time you do it? Double, how many times have you had the perfect plan on paper? You read that, hey, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna execute it like this, and then you get out there and it goes to shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's happens a lot, especially I think early in coaching, you just didn't think of something and you got caught looking unorganized. Just you didn't have enough prowlers or enough sleds, and then all of a sudden people were standing around or just anything. Yeah, and you only learn about that by making those mistakes.
I'm gonna see if you remember. This is one of my favorite stories. I'll use us as an example of this, and hopefully you'll remember it right as I started. But we were having a tug of war competition. I think this was such a well thought out plan. We had 2 ropes going. We had a tire in the middle that they were tied to. We had our teams all set up. Everything was in motion. We said, hey, we got to make sure that no one pulls the rope one way or the other. So we're like, hey, let's have someone stand on the tire to make sure it doesn't move. So we get outside, we get a manager, they stand on the tire, it works perfectly. Both teams pull it tight, the tire doesn't move, we're right in the center. You give it the ready, you blow your whistle. Both teams pull their tire and the rope so hard that it catapults the manager up in the air. Falls down. Rest of the competition is great. We come in from the outside, oh, the competition was there, and the energy was there, everything we wanted was there. And you stopped and looked at the room and was like, dude, I thought we almost killed our manager.
Now, let me ask you this, though. If that would have been caught on tape in the world of YouTube views and stuff, that thing that thing might have had the most views ever of anything out there. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, because that kid got shot like he got shot from a trampoline straight up in the air.
It's amazing. And you said it, the only way you'll ever, like, after that one time, you're like, all right, well, we're not doing that anymore. It sounded great on paper, but the only way to actually learn is to experience that. So day one, when our interns come in, we tell them right from the get-go, I want you coaching. We're going to try to teach you these things, yes, and yes, but I want you coaching. I want them in front of a group of 30 plus athletes, learning how to control an entire group of human beings. I want them coaching on the floor with another coach, learning how to divide up a group or to divide up the weight room. So you have more as an athlete, so it's safer, you get more quality coaching. You got to learn, like, all right, hey, am I going to take this half of the room, you're going to take that half of the room? Or is it going to be, hey, I'm going to watch these 4 platforms, you watch those 4 platforms? What about when we get on the platforms? Let's go to the dumbbell area. Well, who's going to go where? Are you going to go there? I'm going to go here. Are we going to split it in half? Right? You have to learn those things. A textbook might tell you the best ratio, student or athlete to coach ratio is 1 coach per 10 athletes. That's great to know. But how do you divide it up? How do you learn that? It's by doing it. Right? I want you coaching next to another coach, learning how not to step on his toes or her toes, excuse me, how not to step on their toes or coach over them. Right? Because if that happens in a situation, if that happens while you're on the floor, you go to your first job and that happens, 1, you're going to look like an ass, like you don't know what you're doing. 2, you're going to piss that coach off, and then you're probably going to get yelled at after the session. So we want to have that exposure prior to them ever doing that, so they learn and learn. If that's our main goal, then, is to try to get these people coaching and experience as much as possible, that's when our onboarding process is going to come into play. Break this down into 3 basic areas that I'll touch on right now. The first one is going to be our expectations and our rules. And the whole point of this onboarding process is to get them up to speed as quickly as possible. When I look at the expectations and the rules, they need to be clearly outlined. And I'm going to say this a few times to this portion of the slide here, or the PowerPoint, is that if you want to operate at a high level, everyone needs to be on the same page. I learned that from the military a little bit. I was in the military. My brothers, my dad, all that stuff were. So I come up from that background. I've talked to my brothers so many times about, how elite and high organizations operate. And that's one of them. Everyone has to be on the same page. So I can give them the book, or I could say, hey, make sure you go home and read this tonight. And that'll work. They'll read it, or at least maybe 90% of the interns will read it, and they'll understand it. I'm like, all right, cool. But I'm trying to eliminate all the gray area from this. So on day 1, I sit down with them and we go over this portion of it verbatim. That way I know that they know that I know we have covered this. They know my expectations out of the gate. And this, it can span so many things, right? I expect you here an hour before your first team trains. You better keep a professional appearance, et cetera, et cetera. All the way down to, hey, this is how we handle business with our admin, with our coaches, with our student athletes, all the way down to the janitor. And this section of the book is actually taken from another man that's on the Zoom call right now. Now, if you remember, when I first got there, you'd give me a coaching manual. I read it and it had this section in there. And I was like, this is something every strength coach needs to know about how to operate as a professional. So I took that and basically copy and pasted it. I might have switched out a sentence and a couple words, but if I were to turn that into handmein.com or whatever it is, that would be plagiarism, not even close to it. When we talk about the rules, we have a set of weight room rules, and they're posted up in the weight rooms in multiple spots, as a matter of fact. On day 1 of every year, when our athletes come back to school, each individual coach sits down with their team and covers all the rules. We have them sign a piece of paper acknowledging that they know and understand the rules. If we do that with our athletes, I better have the interns on the same page. And once again, this covers some crazy things, but it kind of goes back to what you were saying a couple of weeks ago when you say, hey, there's a reason why that your staff trains at a certain time. And there's a reason why on base 40 days, when your kids are doing base 40s, your whole staff is squatting base 40s. And when it's big bench day, your whole staff is benching big. So when the kids come down there, they look, they're saying, oh, they're doing base 40s too. They have the buy-in to what you're trying to give them now. It's the same thing. So if I'm telling our athletes, hey, our rule is that you do not use the elevator. You will never find me in that freaking elevator. If I say we are not allowed to have iPhones and headphones in here, you will never catch me on my phone or with headphones in. If I'm asking them to do it, I need to exemplify everything that I'm asking our athletes to do. I can't pick and choose what rules. No. I'm asking them, I'm going to exemplify that. I will be the role model for that. And I expect our interns to approach it the same way. One of the favorite ones, of course, double, one of my favorite ones of all time, is saying the W word. I won't even say it. I've tried to get rid of it from my vocabulary so I never accidentally say it. You're more than welcome to say it, but I refuse to. We train. Don't use the W word, man. And if you use it, one of my athletes corrects you, you better just eat it because you're wrong. After that, we go into our department philosophy. And it goes back once again to just culture and how you operate and do things. And if you want to be elite, if you want to be at the highest, everyone has to be on the same page. From the highest of highs all the way to the lowest of lows, right? And if you look at your pyramid, which I've looked at so many times in my lifetime, the very top thing, united we stand. So we are a unit. Doesn't matter who walks down that weight room, whether it's an admin, a sports coach, an athletic trainer, anyone from the sports performance team, they need to know that like this is how we conduct business in the weight room and everybody's on the same page. Like that is just our strength staff. That's them, do it, right? We need to be unified, I guess I would say, in front of everybody. But it's pretty important, I think, that the interns learn about it from day one, because I actually do want them to know the why of and the how that we do things and operate, especially in this day and age when you think about people with this younger generation, I guess I'll say, and not to be negative at all, because it's not, but a lot of times they want to find purpose in the things they do. That's a huge motivator for this generation right now, is they want purpose. They're not gonna go sit at a job that they hate. Like they want to feel involved in all those things. So I want to show them, hey, this is our purpose. This is why we do it. And they don't have to agree with it 100 ways, but if they can find a piece of it that they can really sink their teeth into, once again, that's going to have them buy into our program more, which will in turn have them sell to the athletes even harder. And so it's this nice little circle going on. From there, I talk about our early education process. And all this stuff right here, the onboarding is basically happening anywhere between 3 days before our first week of training to a week out. It just kind of depends. It changes each semester. But over the time, we flagged as a few areas that we feel the interns should know prior to the first day of training. Excuse me. One of the first ones, if you think about what you really let your interns do, on the first week, if not the first 2 weeks, you basically say, hey, you guys can observe, take notes, and get to know the athletes. I don't need you coaching right now, right? They have to earn our trust. They have to earn that right to coach our athletes. But as they do that, what's the next thing that they usually are allowed to do is once they've kind of earned our trust a little bit, it's like, hey, you can kind of watch that platform over there. If you see someone messing up, make sure you correct them. Get on them, coach them. So you might start them off with a small platform, and then, hey, now you can watch 2 platforms or whatever it is. With us, when we kind of think of it like that, I would say one of the most important areas is kind of Olympic movements for us. 80% of our teams perform some variation of an Olympic movement. So at the start of each semester, there's also a team who's in the off season doing technique work or relearning the clean or the snatch or whatever it is, right? Whatever variation they're doing. When they come in, some interns are going to have some knowledge, some don't have any, and then this is going to sound messed up. I don't want to sound like an ass, but some have been taught wrong. So, no offense to the Hatch 8, but it's wrong. I'm kidding. Level 3, I love you, man. I love watching level 3 teach it. Anytime he's teaching Olympic lifts, I'll make sure my door's open because I want to hear every word he's saying. His presence and even some of the words he uses and terminology. Like I write them down to make sure, oh, you know what, that's a good one. I'm gonna use that. So No real offense to the hat shape, man. I love you. All right. But we want them to have an idea of how to perform the movement, how to teach the movement, and how to correct the movement. If you can perform it, if you can learn how to perform it, you don't got to be a stud, but if you learn how to perform it, you're going to have an advantage of trying to teach it. I'll ask you this, Double. Have you ever met somebody who is really good at cleaning, but can't coach it for anything?
Not too much. I've seen some guys, they're not the best teachers, but they can teach pretty well.
Yeah. So, once again, if you can perform it, you have a better chance of teaching to somebody than if not. I'm not saying there's people that can't perform it, but don't get into that whole debate. But it's a tool you can use, I guess what I'm saying. After that, we'll touch on some strength movements as well. That's usually a little more, that's not as foreign to a lot of people, but we'll still kind of go over some of the best practices for spotting and kind of what certain things we look for. And also, hey, this is how we make adjustments, give them some reasonings and stuff like that. So once again, if they know why we do something, hopefully they'll be more bought into it. After you've kind of let them start coaching, our next big step for them is to let them either run part of a warm-up or part of a warm-up usually first, and then on to leading an entire warm-up. That's a big step for us. Like, hey, we want you leading the warm-up. We want you in front of those kids doing that. So we go over warm-ups on that introduction on our onboarding week. And it's the same with assessments. If you come in, usually at the beginning of the semester, there's multiple teams doing assessments. So we want to give them some information, some knowledge of how to test, what you're looking for, all those things. So when they look and they're taking notes, they can start connecting the dots of like, hey, we learned about this and I can see that this coach is doing it over here. Like, oh, I get it now, and kind of put all the pieces together. The last little part of everything is going to be an evaluation, right? Evaluate. And this isn't necessarily how we evaluate the interns. We've already kind of covered that with the practicum. This evaluation is for us, for the program itself. And they actually, because there's 3 of us, there's usually 3 exit interviews, quote unquote. They're going to meet with Darian about, with an exit. They're going to meet with Coach Josh, and they're going to meet with me. Generally speaking, I would say I know that a couple questions that Coach Josh and Coach Darian are going to ask them. And you can kind of go about it as using that SWOT analysis type of mentality and doing those things, which is great. It's awesome. But since I know they're going through it 3 times, I actually gear my questions very specifically towards them. And I have 3 questions that I usually ask them during this evaluation process. It's one is, I want to know, I asked them, hey, what did you think that we did really well? And that's not to pat myself or ourselves on the back. That's not the point of it at all. There is something that we did during this internship program that set itself apart from everything else. I want to know what that is so we can continue to refine that and have that be a staple or a necessity of everything we do. If we know we do this really well, how can we get everything else we do towards that standard and continue to raise it? The next question I personally like to ask them is, was there anything that you liked that we did that we just didn't do enough? This was a good one a few semesters ago. We asked this question to them and said, hey, I thought it was awesome on some Fridays when we had some downtime. Like, we were just with some coaches on the turf, and I think maybe they covered multi-directional speed that week. So this isn't formal education, but we started asking questions, the whole roundtable thing. And hey, have you ever heard of this? Or have you seen this? Or how do you approach this? And they kind of went through this session amongst themselves, but it kind of only happened twice throughout the year. Interns said, hey, we really enjoyed doing that. I think you need to do more of that. So our evaluation being, all right, how can we incorporate more of that into the program and still make it feel organic and fun? But how do we get more of that in there? If it's that good, we need to get more of it. The last one I ask them, and it's a loaded question, but it shouldn't be, all right? But I ask them to say, hey, if you ran the program, what would you do differently? And at this point in time, I want them to know, and it's essential they know that, like, I'm not going to hold anything against them that they say here. If I didn't want a truthful answer, I would not ask that question. I do not want to be surrounded by yes men and yes women. I want to be challenged. I want to better myself. And the way I can do that is if people are honest with me. So if I ask them that question and they look at me and say, I don't like the way you taught, I would have to, if I get that once, twice, 3 times, I better really evaluate what I'm doing as a teacher, as an instructor to these people. That may be, I don't get to teach that subject anymore. Like, hey, I don't do it well. I have to give it to somebody else. And I have to be okay with that. And I can't hold it against them. I already have my decision on their recommendation on what I think they should do with their lives prior to this. So this isn't going to make me hate them. It's not going to, if anything, it's going to help. And I can look and be like, hey, you're a very honest individual. And I appreciate that. You're someone I'm going to call down the road when I need an honest answer to something. What else we got? Do we want to go over the hiring process a little double? We want to skip that? What do you want to do?
Yeah, let's skip that one.
Cool. So, I mean, that's pretty much everything that I had planned in. To be honest, I said, if I look at the framework of everything, when you break it down like that, it doesn't matter if you are just starting out your internship program or you're trying to find ways to kind of improve your internship program. If you're able to kind of look at that framework, you can make decisions and adjustments of how to build a pretty solid internship program. Up right here is going to be my contact information. So if anyone wants to email me, my email is right there. It's TOJEDA@usc.edu. You can find me on the good old gram at TimmyRocks_31. I don't do a whole lot, but come follow me. It'll be a hoot. And if you want to watch more training based things, at USC_sports performance is our Instagram.
Big Dog, have you witnessed in your time any kind of, as far as, I guess, the recruitment or I guess more the interview process? Have you seen anything that's a little bit, I don't know, off, a little different out there to evaluate an intern if they're going to be able to come in and cut it in your time, you know, like some like crazy lift or something?
Nope.
So you haven't seen an intern kind of to see if they could do like a 10x10 squat protocol, if they could finish that, whether or not they're going to be hired or not?
Actually, I have. I've witnessed that firsthand. I've also, I'll tell you, there's some good things. We had one of our guys come in one time. It was actually for an interview. And it was like, all right, hey, kind of went through the interview process. Hey, do you want to lift? I'm about to lift right now. He was like, okay, I'll lift. And right there in my mind, when he said he wanted to lift, I was like, we're about to find out if he can cut it or not.
Yep.
Took him through, well, what I would consider a normal training session for myself, but talking to him later, he was like, dude, my legs were sore for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But he got through it. He did it. I was like, all right, man, I like this kid now.
Something to me, in my evaluation, I love the stuff that you guys are doing, the formal, the presentation where they put together a plan, they get the round table, they get, it's like an interview almost. They get beat up, they get, shots fired at them, they get, the why, they know they're going to go in their freaking lines den, something for me on interns, and I keep it really simple. And you've probably heard me say this. For me, I always evaluate an intern on the very first day or so when they leave. And to me, if an intern was there for a summer or was there for, say, the winter program, and let's just say I'm speaking with football side, and I always felt the day after they left, or ever how many days, told me how good an intern they were. So, for example, we had a guy this past summer, Marcus, with football. The day after he left, several players were already talking that they missed him. They knew his name. They got to know him. He made an impact. They felt his energy. the day he was missing, something was missing in our program, and you could feel it, and the players could feel it, and you could tell they had a little bit of a like a withdrawal from Marcus. Kind of, man, he's not here today. Can we get him back? And that's an example. I think when an intern did a great job and made a major impact, and he and I always tell him in the front end, I was like, I'm going to know how well you did the day you leave. And I've had the other side where an intern was there and maybe didn't make such an impact, did not build relationships. No one really felt them. And the next day after they're gone, no one says a word.
Yeah.
3 days later, no one's brought his name up. A week later, no one's brought his name up. And then 2 weeks later, finally somebody says, hey, where's that one guy? And we're like, what? What was his name? The guy, long, he had the weird hair or whatever, wore the chain. Oh yeah, he left 2 weeks ago. Oh yeah, he was pretty cool. Where'd he go? And it's like, so almost 2 weeks ago by, no one's even brought him up.
Yeah.
Like, to me, didn't make an impact, didn't make an impression. Athletes didn't feel, and to me overall, probably didn't do the best job, So I really look at it like that.
Yeah, I definitely have so many things written down that you have said and things over the time. I usually don't share it because it's not my own, but those things I look back all the time, and it's just at the beginning of every semester, it's something I look through and like, all right, am I still accomplishing these things that I have heard or learned from you and from Tim and from Ivan over the years? Like, am I still really checking these boxes or not?
Yeah. Yeah. To me, it's real simple. The day you leave is how I know how well you did. And
we had another awesome situation was I was working with my water polo girls, and we had a coach who made such a great impact. And when he left, like, we all knew, like, dude, it's not gonna be long before he gets a grown-up job. Like, we couldn't place him right away, but it was gonna happen quick. And the day he left, all the girls were super sad. You could tell, it's just that vibe in the room wasn't there. But I want to say we're towards the end of the season, and he's able to come back. He came to visit, and I said, hey, dude, I want you to go hide in the closet over there in our little storage room. So I'm going to start the warm up, and about, like a minute into it, I just want you to run out. And the girls just went crazy. His name was Dylan, D-Lo. But the girls went nuts. It was a cheer fest, and that whole training session was probably the best we had all year, which I don't know if that means I'm a horrible coach or if it's just he made that big of an impact on those girls.
Yeah, and it's a great example. And now I see now, especially with social media and the presence of things, Instagram and all that, now you see, like, it'd be 2 or 3 weeks after, say, like, Marcus left, there was still guys like putting a picture of Marcus in our weight room and like in their story and be like, I miss this guy. And like, holy cow, what an impact, they're still talking about it, and this is a couple weeks later.
I actually talked to Marcus today a little bit, man. The same. I miss that guy too. I thought he was I thought he was an asset to our program for the summer. We're talking a couple months.
Yeah, 2 months.
All of us.
Yeah, and it's paid off. I think he's now with the Chicago Bears. Is that correct? Yeah. It's awesome. All right, listen. Thanks, Big Dog. I appreciate it. We'll rock and roll and resume these things as we keep going. Hope everybody got something from this. I definitely love seeing the more formalized things. It's, there was a gap where I wasn't here for 5 years at SC, and you were still here and still, developing this. And now with Pika involved, and of course Josh, and everybody, you can see you guys have definitely formulated it into a really cool professional almost like its own little organization. So that's exactly how I think the Big Time does it. So, all right, Big Dog, appreciate it. Signing off. Fight on.